Smoke filled the sky above Outpost Theta. Buildings were burning. And the sound of explosions echoed through the mountains. Human soldiers were retreating fast, running to the evacuation ships. The enemy had broken through their final defense. Line, it was chaos. People shouted orders, carried the wounded, and left behind everything they couldn't carry. Sergeant Daniel Ross held his rifle tight as he ran through the collapsing corridor. His orders were clear: get to the dropship and evacuate. No delays, no side missions, just survival. But Daniel wasn't the kind of man to ignore his gut. Something made him stop. He heard a sound, a faint cry. Almost like a whisper, he turned his head. Another explosion shook the ground. But he followed the sound through smoke and falling metal, behind a broken wall, in a pile of dust and wreckage. Was a child, not human. She had dark purple skin, glowing teal eyes, and thin antennae on her head. Her body was shaking, her tiny hands bleeding. She looked at him with fear but also hope. Daniel lowered his rifle slowly. He remembered the briefing. This species is dangerous. Do not engage, but she was a child. No older than 6 or 7. She wasn't a threat. She was hurt and scared. And alone, he took a slow step forward. The girl flinched but didn't run. Daniel knelt down and spoke softly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here." She didn't understand his words, but she understood his voice. Her small hand reached out and touched his glove. Then she collapsed, unconscious. Daniel lifted her gently into his arms. She was light, barely breathing. He stood up and ran. As he exited the hallway, one of his squad mates spotted him. "Sergeant Ross, what the hell is that?" "It's a child." Daniel shouted, "Drop it." "That's an enemy. We have no time." Command said, "Leave them behind." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's just a kid." His squad mate pointed his weapon at the girl. "Put it down now. That's an order." Daniel stepped back. "I won't," he said. Then he turned and ran. Soldiers yelled after him. Some threatened to shoot, others called command. Daniel didn't care. The girl's breathing was getting weaker. He had to get her to safety. The evacuation zone was just ahead. People were boarding the last ship. He pushed through the crowd. The guard at the entrance held up his hand. "Human only. No aliens." "She's a child." Daniel shouted, "I don't care what she is. Orders are orders." Behind him, enemy fire lit up the sky again. Daniel looked at the girl, then at the guard. He stepped forward and said, "Then shoot me, because I'm not leaving without her." There was a pause. Then someone inside the ship shouted, "Let him in. We don't have time." The guard cursed, then moved aside. Daniel rushed up the ramp, cradling the child in his arms. The ship lifted off seconds later. Through the window, Daniel saw the base explode into flames. He had made it. The medical team ran to him. One nurse looked at the alien girl and froze. "We can't treat her. She's not human." Daniel's face was pale and angry. "She'll die if you don't help." The nurse hesitated, then took her from his arms. "I'll see what I can do." Daniel sat on the cold floor of the ship, covered in ash and bruises. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just stared at the medbay door. After a long silence, the door opened. "She's stable for now," the nurse said. She woke up for a second. "What did she say?" Daniel asked. The nurse looked confused. "One word," she said. "What word?" "Mother." Daniel leaned back and closed his eyes. He knew this was only the beginning. He had saved an enemy's child, and somewhere out there, the mother was looking for her. The medical room was quiet. Machines beeped slowly, measuring the child's heartbeat. She lay still on the bed, her small body wrapped in a white blanket. Her purple skin looked pale under the lights. Her antennae twitched slightly, as if sensing danger nearby. Daniel sat on a bench outside the room, his face bruised and tired. He hadn't slept since the evacuation. The words kept echoing in his head. Mother? The girl had said it right before falling unconscious again. A soldier walked by and stared through the glass. Why's that thing still alive? He muttered. Daniel stood up slowly. She's not a thing, he said. She's a child. The soldier shook his head and walked away. To most people here, the girl was still the enemy. Even though she had done nothing wrong, when the girl finally opened her eyes. She panicked. The room was too white, too cold, too quiet. She sat up quickly and looked around. Her heart racing, strange machines were stuck to her body. She tore them off and jumped from the bed. Her legs were weak, but she ran anyway. Nurses rushed to stop her. She's awake. Someone get security. The girl didn't understand their words. All she saw were humans with sharp tools and shouting voices. She thought they were going to hurt her. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she screamed in her language. Daniel heard the noise and ran inside. The moment she saw him, she froze. Her breathing slowed down and she took a step toward him. Easy, Daniel said softly. Kneeling down, it's okay. You're safe now. She stared at him, trembling. Then she ran into his arms and held him tightly. Everyone around them went silent. A few nurses lowered their tools. One whispered, "She trusts him." Daniel picked her up gently and sat on the bed with her in his lap. She buried her face in his chest, trying to stop crying. He held her until she calmed down. From that moment, she refused to be away from him. She wouldn't eat unless he was near. She wouldn't sleep unless he was sitting beside her bed. Daniel stayed with her every night. He brought her soft food, toys, and tried to teach her simple words. She learned his name first, Danelle. And then she started calling him something else too. Zaru. No one knew what it meant at first, but later, a translator guessed it meant protector. Daniel gave her a name, Tuwaya. It was easier for the humans to say, and somehow it felt right. Aya began to smile more. She started drawing pictures with colored pencils, drawings of stars, trees, and one small man holding the hand of a purple girl. But not everyone was happy. News had spread. Command had found out what Daniel had done. One day, 2 officers arrived at the medical wing. Sergeant Ross, you are ordered to turn the alien child over to command custody. Daniel stood in front of Aya, who was holding his leg, scared. She's not a prisoner, Kay said. She's a survivor. She's a classified threat. The officer replied, orders are orders. Daniel didn't move. You'll have to take her from me, he said. The officers exchanged looks. Behind them, nurses and even one young doctor stepped forward. She's not hurting anyone, the doctor said. We treated her. She's stable. She's just a child. The officers backed off for now, but everyone knew this peace wouldn't last. Something bigger was coming. Then, late one night, it did. A ship was detected in Orbitalian. It didn't attack, it didn't respond to messages, but it stayed and scanned the base. Everyone knew what that meant. She's here, Daniel whispered. Aya's mother, Aya, stood by the window, staring at the sky. She pressed her small hand to the glass and whispered one word, Zuna. Daniel had no idea what it meant, but in her eyes, there was fear and hope at the same time. Someone had come for her. But was it a rescue? Or something far worse? The room was quiet. Too quiet. Daniel didn't like it. Aya was sleeping on a small bed beside him, curled up like a kitten. Her thin arms held tightly onto a blanket he had given her. Even in sleep, her antennae twitched nervously. Daniel kept his hand near her, just in case. But then came the knock on the door. Not soft, not polite, 3 hard knocks. Daniel stood up, his heart already racing. The door opened and 4 soldiers stepped in. Behind them stood a stern officer in dark uniform, Colonel Hurst. You know why we're here? Hurst said coldly. Daniel didn't answer. Hurst pointed at the sleeping girl. "Turn over the alien. She's not a threat," Daniel said, his voice firm. "Maybe not now," Hurst replied, "but she's the daughter of an enemy leader." "She's a child," Daniel repeated. Hurst signaled to the soldiers. "Take her." The soldiers moved forward. Daniel stepped in front of them, arms wide. "Don't do this," he warned. One of the soldiers hesitated. Another one pushed Daniel back. "Stand down, Sergeant." The noise woke Aya. She sat up, blinking, confused. Then she saw the soldiers and panic filled her eyes. "No." She screamed. She jumped off the bed and ran to Daniel, hugging his leg tightly. One soldier grabbed her arm. She cried out, "Zaru! Zaru!" over and over again. Daniel's eyes burned. "Let her go," he shouted. "She's scared." The officer stayed silent, watching. Aya screamed louder, her voice full of terror. She kicked, fought, and finally bit the soldier's hand. The soldier dropped her in surprise. She ran straight into Daniel's arms. Her body shook as she cried, holding on to him like her life depended on it. Daniel looked at Hurst. "You saw that?" he said. "She's not an enemy. She's a child in danger." But Hurst's expression didn't change. "You're too emotional, Ross. You formed a bond with an alien. That clouds your judgment. You'll be removed from duty." Daniel didn't care. He knelt beside Aya and whispered, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Aya looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with tears. "Zaru," she said again, softer this time. After that moment, the soldiers left, but the warning was clear. Daniel was no longer trusted. He wasn't a hero anymore. He was a problem. People in the base whispered about him. Some called him a traitor. Others watched in silence, unsure what to believe. But something was changing. The young doctor who had helped Aya before Dr. Morenz started visiting more. She brought Aya food, small puzzles, and even tried speaking to her. At first, Aya didn't respond. But when Daniel was present, she smiled. Marin noticed. "She's learning." "Slowly," she said one day. "She draws every day. Do you want to see something?" Daniel looked at the sketchpad Aya held. She flipped the pages with her tiny hands. Stars, moons, suns. And then one drawing stopped him cold. It was a tall figure with long hair, wearing a glowing crown. Beside it was Aya, and in the sky was a symbol of family mark. "Maybe," Daniel stared at the picture. "Is this your?" Aya nodded. "Zuna," she whispered. "She's coming." That word again, Suna. Marin leaned close. She might be drawing her mother. If that's true, then her mother might be near. The next day, the alien ship moved. It began sending a signal to the base. No words, just a symbol, the same one from Aya's drawing. Command called an emergency meeting. "We believe the ship belongs to a high-ranking alien leader," said one officer. "And we believe she wants her child back." Everyone turned to Daniel. "She's not just any child," he said. "She's the daughter of someone important." The officers whispered among themselves, "This could be a trap." One said, "Or an opportunity," said another. The base had to decide: return the child or prepare for conflict. Daniel went back to his room, unsure of what would happen next. Aya was sitting on the bed, waiting. He sat beside her and sighed. "Everything's changing." "Aya," he said. She tilted her head, not understanding all his words, but she took his hand and rested her head on his arm. "Zaru," she said again, like a promise. Daniel smiled, even though worry-filled. His heart, someone out there wanted this child badly, but no one knew why. Was it love, or a war that was coming next? Daniel couldn't sleep. His mind kept spinning. He looked at Aya, curled up beside him under a thin blanket. She trusted him with everything, but he could no longer trust the people around him. Command had made a decision. The alien ship had sent a silent message, one simple symbol from their language. The symbol meant return. The officers believed it was a demand, not a request. They feared the alien mother was powerful, so they made a plan to send the child back. Quickly, quietly, without questions. But Daniel knew something was wrong. This isn't a peaceful handover. He told Dr. Marin, "She's not cargo. She's a living child." Marin agreed. "They won't let you go with her, Daniel. She'll be handed over." And forgotten, or worse, Daniel made a choice. He would take Aya and escape. Find her mother on his own terms. Protect her all the way, even if it meant becoming a fugitive that night. While the base slept under red alert lights, Daniel packed what little he had: food rations, water, medical supplies, a translator device, and a soft scarf to keep Aya warm. He gently woke her. She blinked up at him sleepily. "Zaru, we're going on a trip," he whispered. Her small hand slipped into his without hesitation. The security systems were tight. But Daniel knew the base better than anyone. He found the old maintenance tunnel narrow, dusty, forgotten, as they crawled through it. Aya tried not to cough from the dust. Daniel smiled at her bravery. "You're doing good," he whispered. She gave him a tiny nod. When they reached the end of the tunnel, Daniel paused. Outside was no man's land, an open stretch between human and alien territories. It was cold, full of debris from old battles, and dangerous. But they had no other choice. He lifted Aya in his arms and ran through broken fences, across silent fields, under the stars. His boots kicked up ash and dirt. Every sound made him freeze. Every shadow looked like a soldier. Aya hid her face in his chest. She wasn't crying, but she was scared. Still, she didn't complain. She trusted Daniel more than anything. Behind them, alarms suddenly blared. They had been discovered. Searchlights swept the area. Voices shouted through radios. "Sergeant Ross has taken the alien child. He's gone rogue." Daniel didn't stop. He ran faster, cutting through a broken trench, disappearing into the trees. The forest was quiet again. Daniel moved deeper, finding an old shelter once used during drills. He laid Aya down and gave her water. She drank slowly, watching his face. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded and leaned into his side. "I won't let them take you," he promised. For the next 2 days, they moved quietly. Daniel used old maps and his training to avoid patrols. He saw drones overhead, but stayed hidden. Aya helped too. Always silent, always alert, at night. They shared food and watched the stars. She started pointing at them, naming some in her language. Daniel tried repeating the names, and she giggled at his bad accent, but time was running out. The alien ship had landed miles away in the deep valley. Daniel could feel it, like a storm waiting to happen. And as they got closer, Aya's behavior changed. She looked more serious, more focused. She was remembering things: her home, her people, her mother. Then came the patrol. 3 alien scouts in silver armor spotted them. Daniel raised his hands at once. "Wait. I'm not here to fight." Aya stepped forward, spoke words in her native tongue. The soldiers paused, surprised. One of them lowered his weapon slowly. Aya pointed at Daniel and said one word: "Zaru." The aliens looked at each other. Then, one tapped his wrist device and called for someone. Minutes later, a large ship descended into the valley. It was elegant, glowing softly, not like the war machines Daniel had seen before. The ramp lowered, and a tall figure stepped out. Her presence made the air feel heavy. She had long hair made of silver strands, glowing patterns on her skin, and eyes like fire. Aya's mother. Aya didn't run. She walked slowly toward the woman. The alien mother knelt down, arms wide. Aya hesitated, then ran into her embrace. Daniel watched in silence. The mother hugged Aya tightly, whispered something in her ear. Then she looked up at Daniel, not with anger, not with hate, but with deep, quiet gratitude. She stood, walked toward him, and bowed her head. Daniel didn't move. unsure what to do. She touched her chest and then pointed at him, a translator nearby. Picked up the signal. Her voice echoed softly. He carried my heart when I could not reach her. Daniel finally exhaled. His mission wasn't over. It was just changing. The valley was silent. Only the sound of the wind moved between the broken stones and ancient trees. Daniel stood at the base of the alien ship. Unsure what would happen next, Aya was in her mother's arms. Smiling but still glancing back at him every few seconds, she didn't want to let go. And honestly, neither did he. The alien queen, tall, graceful, powerful, turned to him slowly. Her glowing eyes studied his face, his uniform, his wounds. Daniel stood straight, ready for anything. If she attacked, he would take it. If she ordered his death, he wouldn't fight it. He had done what he had to do. But she did something no one expected. She stepped forward and knelt. She placed Aya gently on her feet, then bowed deeply before Daniel. The guards around her froze in shock. Even the translator drone paused for a second, confused by her posture. Then her voice came through, slow and heavy. He carried my daughter from fire. He protected her when I could not. This human is no enemy. Daniel blinked, surprised. He had expected anger, not honor. He nodded slightly, unsure how to respond. I just did what was right, he said quietly. Aya stepped beside him, took his hand, and looked up at her mother, Zaru. She said again with pride. Her mother nodded, repeating the word with quiet respect. The guards relaxed slightly. One stepped forward and whispered something to the queen. She turned to Daniel again and said, "You will come with us, Daniel." Hesitated. "I don't think your people will like that." She looked at him carefully. "Some will not," she admitted, "but you have touched royal blood with clean hands. You are owed more than thanks." The alien ship opened fully, revealing a large chamber inside. It wasn't cold like a war room. It was soft, filled with lights that glowed gently and colors that changed as they walked. Daniel followed nervously. Aya walked beside him, holding his sleeve tightly. Her mother walked ahead, graceful and silent. Inside, more of the queen's people gathered. Some stared at Daniel with fear, others with suspicion. But when they saw Aya laughing and touching Daniel's hand, something shifted. Whispers moved through the room. The human saved her. He crossed the fire line. He carried her on his back. One elder stepped forward, his skin dark and covered in silver tattoos. He looked into Daniel's eyes and asked one word. "Why?" Daniel looked down at Aya. "She was alone," he said. "She needed someone." The elder nodded once, then stepped back. The queen raised her hand. "This man is not a soldier today," she said. "He is not a prisoner, nor a stranger. He is under the crown's protection." Gasps filled the room. Daniel didn't understand all the meaning, but he knew it was something big. Aya smiled and pressed her forehead against his arm. "Zaru," she said once more, like a badge of honor. Later, the queen took him to a private chamber. She sat on a chair that pulsed with light. Daniel remained standing, his hands behind his back. "Why did you not keep her for leverage?" she asked. "Most would." Daniel looked her in the eye. "Because that's not what humans are supposed to do. Because if we lose our kindness, we'll lose everything." The queen studied him in silence. Then she said softly, "I lost my mate in the first war. I thought my daughter would follow him into death. But then I saw her drawing of you." She opened a hologram, showing Aya's sketch of him holding her hand. "I thought it was a lie," she said. "But here you are." Daniel felt the weight of everything he had done. The battles, the defiance, the running, the protection. And now peace, standing in front of him in the form of a mother. "You could have left her," the queen said. "But you didn't." Daniel nodded slowly. "She reminded me of my niece," he said. "She was scared, and I just couldn't leave her." The queen stood and walked over to him. She placed something in his hand, a small crystal, warm to the touch. "Keep this," she said. "It means you are welcome here." Daniel looked down at the crystal. It glowed slightly when he held it near his chest for the first time in weeks. He felt. Sci-Fi entered the room again. Running to him with a bright smile, she pointed at the crystal. "Home," she whispered. Daniel didn't say anything. He just smiled back, because maybe. She was right. The peace didn't last long. The alien Queen's ship had not gone unnoticed. Back at the human base, scanners picked up her landing. Command panicked. They believed Daniel had been captured, and worse. They believed the alien forces had crossed the boundary. The generals gathered around digital maps. One slammed his hand on the table. "This is a threat," he shouted. "They're trying to use the child to control us." Another officer added. "The soldier went rogue. We don't know what he told them." "No more talking." A third one said coldly. "It's time to prepare for strike." Within hours, warships launched from the human side. Fighter jets circled above the alien valley. Guns were armed, and orders were given. A new war was seconds from starting. Inside the alien ship, Daniel could feel the change. Guards began to move faster. Walls turned from soft light to red warning colors. The Queen stood tall, her eyes serious. Her generals were angry, pacing in the hall. "They do not trust us," one said. "They bring death again." Daniel stepped forward. "Please," he said. "Let me talk to them." The Queen looked at him carefully. "They won't listen to you," she said. "I have to try." Daniel said, "They'll listen to her." He turned toward Aya, who stood in the corner, watching the grown-ups argue. She didn't understand war, but she knew fear, and she knew what it looked like when her people were ready to fight. Daniel knelt in front of her and held her small hands. "Do you remember how I carried you out of the fire?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Can you help me carry peace now?" Aya looked unsure, but then she smiled and nodded again. The Queen ordered her ship to open a safe path between the camps. A small landing zone where both sides could meet. No guns, no armies, just a single platform. A place for truth or war. The human side sent a high-ranking general. His name was Briggs, and he was known for one thing: never forgiving an enemy. As his ship landed, he stepped out with sharp eyes and a cold heart. But when he saw Daniel standing there, beside the alien Queen, holding a little alien girl's hand, he froze. "Sergeant Ross." Briggs said sharply, "What the hell are you doing?" Daniel raised his hands. "No tricks, no betrayal," he said. "I'm here for peace." Briggs scoffed. "That child is a tool." "She's a child," Daniel corrected. "And she stopped me from giving up on humanity." Briggs was about to speak again, but Aya stepped forward. Everyone fell silent. She walked alone to the center of the platform. Her small voice echoed through the translator. "Please don't fight," she said. "Please don't hurt each other." She looked at her mother, then at Briggs, then back at Daniel. She pointed to all three and said something in her own language. The translator paused, then spoke. "I don't want to lose anyone else." Briggs looked shaken. "I lost a daughter in the First War," he said slowly. "She was about her age." Daniel stepped beside him. "I know," he said softly. "I didn't save your daughter, but I saved someone else's." The wind blew gently across the platform. No guns fired. No one moved. Finally, Briggs turned to the Queen. He didn't bow, but he lowered his voice. "Do you swear? No harm will come to our people if we walk away." The Queen nodded. "As long as your people respect the peace, I will protect it myself." Briggs sighed and lowered his weapon. "Then let it end here," he said. He looked at Daniel. "You'll be court-martialed for going against orders." Daniel smiled a little. "I can live with that." Aya grabbed his hand again, tightly. Briggs stared at her one last time. then returned to his ship. The alien guard stepped back into formation. The Queen placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Your people did not expect kindness from ours," she said. "And my people did not expect mercy from yours, but one child changed everything." That night, 2 ships lifted into the stars. One returned to human space. The other carried Daniel deeper into alien lands, not as a prisoner, not as a spy, but as someone trusted. Aya sat beside him, her head resting on his arm. She had ended a war without lifting a weapon, and in doing so, had given 2 worlds a second chance. The stars shone quietly over the alien city, its towers lit with soft colors that changed like the tide. Daniel stood on a balcony, overlooking the strange world he had never imagined. Aya was beside him, her small hand in his, her eyes glowed. Faintly in the dark, filled with wonder and trust, the alien queen had made her decision. Daniel was no longer just a visitor. He was part of their world now, a guardian, a protector, a symbol of peace between 2 very different peoples. The ceremony was simple but powerful. In the great hall, under shimmering lights, the queen placed a small glowing crystal around Daniel's neck. "This crystal marks you as blood guardian of the royal line," she said softly. "It means you carry our trust and our future." Daniel felt the weight of the honor. He thought about the battles he fought, the choices he made, the child he saved, and the mother who saw him not as an enemy, but as a hero. He looked at Aya, who smiled brightly. "Zaru," she whispered proudly. Back on Earth, news spread quickly. Some called Daniel a traitor. Others called him a hero. He had broken orders, defied command, and saved a child who was supposed to be the enemy. His actions changed the course of history, and people couldn't ignore that. Daniel didn't regret a single moment. He had found something greater than war hope, kindness, and family. Aya wasn't just a child anymore. She was his charge, his friend, his reason to keep fighting for peace. The queen trusted Daniel with secrets. She showed him ancient texts and stories of her people. She told him about their pain, their wars, and their dreams for a better future. Daniel listened, learned, and grew. He taught them about humans too, how even in war, humans could be kind, brave, and loyal. Sometimes, Daniel missed home, the smell of fresh air, the sound of rain on rooftops. But when Aya held his hand and looked up at him with those glowing eyes, he knew he was exactly where he needed to be. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the alien city, Daniel stood beside the queen on a balcony. They watched the stars together in silence. She turned to him and smiled. "You saved my daughter," she said, "but you gave me something more. You gave me hope." Daniel smiled back. "Maybe we saved each other," he said softly. Aya laughed and ran to them. She held a small flower. Glowing with soft light, she gave it to Daniel. "For you, Zaru," she said. He took it carefully. The flower pulsed warmly in his hand. It was a symbol of new beginnings. Years passed. Daniel became a bridge between 2 worlds, humans and aliens. Started to talk more. Trade routes opened, and soldiers turned into diplomats. Peace was not perfect, but it was real, and it began with one human who refused to leave a child behind. Daniel often remembered that day at the burning base. The sound of the girl's cry, the weight of her small body in his arms, the choice to do what was right instead of what was easy. Now, as he stood on the balcony, watching the stars with Aya and the queen, he knew the future was bright, because kindness can cross any border, and one act of courage can change the fate of worlds.